Okay. I think. Great, great. Um, you might have noticed the question mark in the stream title. Um, Public domain book club hour question mark because there is not a single brain cell present for this stream tonight. There is no focus, just vibes. Um, I am attempting a different streaming software again because OBS does intimidate me, and I did get tired of the sad superimposed chat window. Again, there are 0 brain cells. I would start reading The Sign of the Four because that would be the natural progression of Public Domain Book Club Hour, but I don't know if that's the direction to go in, hence the question mark in tonight's stream title. Because, yeah, the obvious call would be, oh, just start reading the next story, because we finished A Study in Scarlet last week. I have not gotten the YouTube upload. Ah, that's another thing. The insane twink problems are real this week. Like, everything happened this week, which is why I have chickened out and gone back to using Streamlabs instead of OBS, because OBS wanted me to install a bunch of things. Let me see if my, like, thing is working at all. I don't... Yeah. That's gonna make a bad sound. I think I'm audible. There we go. Yes. The easy answer would be to start reading The Sign of the Four. However, I'm not sure that that's what's going to happen today, just because the insane twink problems have been real this week. Definitely, I don't think that... Is that even working? Oh, please. Please be so nice to me. Streamlabs, I said you looked friendly. I said you looked friendly and less intimidating than OBS. Am I gonna have to switch back? I think it's fine. If it's suddenly not fine, please tell me. There we go. The insane twink problems have been so real. Can I just take a second to complain about the fact that for the first time in the entire pandemic, I finally got COVID? I'm fine now, this was last week, but that's, like, why I'm fully aware that, like, trying to set up stream software is an activity that I'm, like, allowed to do more than an hour before I'm planning to stream. That is not an activity that is strictly locked by any means other than sheer procrastination into being done at 10 p.m. before trying to stream at 11 p.m. A responsible human being would plan ahead and test software days or even more than an hour in advance. But, look. Has anyone been able to get access to their ADHD medication this year? It's less likely than you think. Yeah. Let's read some of The Sign of the Four and see if I stay focused. Because again, there's not a brain cell to be found. Again, like everyone, I know it's the this is a, like, national problem affecting, like, everyone who has ADHD not being able to get their meds. But then I was supposed to be testing new meds, but then I got COVID and ended up on the Paxlovid, like, antiviral thing, which I think I technically could have continued testing the new psych meds while on it, but that felt like doing too many things to my body at the same time, and because I had only been supposed to be on it for like a week, and well, you see, the catch-22, am I using that correctly, of ADHD being you have to remember to take the medication in order for it to work, which is, you know, the problem of ADHD, remembering to do things at fixed times on a daily or weekly basis. The Sign of the Four. Chapter 1, The Science of Deduction. Sherlock Holmes took his bottle from the corner of the mantelpiece, and his hypodermic syringe from its neat morocco case. With his long, white, nervous fingers, he adjusted the delicate needle and rolled back his left shirt cuff. For some little time, content warning, Sherlock Holmes' typical drug use. Also, needles. I forget that needles needs to be a content warning. That's another thing. I remembered that I had not remembered to take my testosterone, which I was supposed to do yesterday. Days have 8 weeks sometimes. Supposed to be 7, but I forgore. A running theme. A running theme is I forgore. On the topic of things that I forgot, I have had new roommates. I moved into a new place with new roommates, and have managed not to forget my laundry in the dryer up until this point. Except, perhaps less obvious from the snippets shown online. Everything I own is red and black, so when I forget my laundry, it's obviously mine, because no one else owns that monochromatic a pile of clothing, unless it is committing to a bit that ran away. Committing to a bit that ran away years ago, because of course it is. Of course I am. Another fun fact about this is my dryer lint is often extremely red. Like, more so if I'm washing, like, towels that make a lot of red lint, because of course my towels are red. What other fucking color would they be? I have no idea where this tangent started. Today might not be it. We're gonna go for it. This tangent started with I forgot and frantically had to do my testosterone for the week a day late, 5 minutes before stream, as we enter in on Sherlock Holmes being Sherlock Holmes. So, we proceed. Typical Sherlock Holmes amounts of drug use and needle mention. Where were we? Like a sentence and a half in. Oh my god. I'm not even sure if this stream setup is working better right now. Sherlock Holmes took his bottle from the corner of the mantelpiece and his hypodermic syringe from its neat morocco case. With his long, white, nervous fingers, he adjusted the delicate needle and rolled back his left shirt cuff. For some little time, his eyes rested thoughtfully upon the sinewy forearm and wrist. I know it's sinewy. All dotted and scarred with innumerable puncture marks. Finally, he thrust the sharp point home, pressed down the tiny piston, and sank back into the velvet-lined armchair with a long sigh of satisfaction. 3 times a day for many months I had witnessed this performance, but custom had not reconciled my mind to it. On the contrary, from day to day I had become more irritable at the sight, and my conscience swelled nightly within me at the thought that I had lacked the courage to protest. Again and again I had registered a vow that I should deliver my soul upon the subject, but there was that in the cool, nonchalant air of my companion which made him the last man with one whom would care to take anything approaching to a liberty. His great powers, his masterly manner, and the experience which I had of his many extraordinary qualities, all made me different and backward in crossing him. Yet upon that afternoon, whether it was the buane which I had taken with my lunch, or the additional exasperation produced by the extreme deliberation of his manner, I suddenly felt that I could hold out no longer. "Which is it today?" I asked, "morphine or cocaine?" He raised his eyes languidly from the old black-letter volume which he had opened. "It is cocaine," he said, "a 7% solution. Would you care to try it?" "No, indeed," I answered brusquely. "My constitution has not got over the Afghan campaign yet. I cannot afford to throw any extra strain upon it." He smiled at my vehemence. "Perhaps you're right, Watson," he said. "I suppose that its influence is physically a bad one. I find it, however, so transcendently stimulating and clarifying to the mind that its secondary action is a matter of small moment." "But consider," I said earnestly, "count the cost. Your brain may, as you say, be roused and excited, but it is a pathological and morbid process which involves increased tissue change and may at last leave a permanent weakness. You know, too, what a black reaction comes upon you. Surely the game is hardly worth the candle. Why should you, for a mere passing pleasure, risk the loss of those great powers with which you've been endowed? Remember that I speak not only as one comrade to another, but as a medical man to one for whose constitution he is to some extent answerable." He did not seem offended. On the contrary, he put his fingertips together and leaned his elbows on the arms of the chair like one who had a relish for the conversation. "My mind," he said, "rebels at stagnation. Give me problems, give me work, give me the most abstruse cryptogram or the most intricate analysis, and I am in my own proper atmosphere. I can dispense with artificial stimulants, but I abhor the dull routine of existence. I crave for mental exaltation. That's why I've chosen my own particular profession, or rather created it, for I am the only one in the world." "The only unofficial detective?" he answered. I said, raising my eyebrows. "The only unofficial consulting detective," he answered. "I am the last and highest court of appeal in detection. When Gregson or Lestrade or Athelney Jones are out of their depths, which, by the way, is their normal state, the matter is laid before me. I examine the data as an expert and pronounce a specialist's opinion. I claim no credit in such cases. My name figures in no newspaper. The work itself, the pleasure of finding a field for my peculiar powers, is my highest reward. But you have yourself had some experience of my methods of work in the Jefferson Hope case." "Yes, indeed," I said cordially. "I was never so struck by anything in my life. I even embodied it in a small brochure with the somewhat fantastic title of A Study in Scarlet." He shook his head sadly. "I glanced over it," said he. "Honestly, I can't congratulate you upon it. Detection is, or ought to be, an exact science, and should be treated in the same cold and unemotional manner. You have attempted to tinge it with romanticism, which produces much the same effect as if you worked a love story or an elopement into the 5th proposition of Euclid." "But the romance was there," I remonstrated. "I could not tamper with the facts." "Some facts should be suppressed, or at least a just sense of proportion should be observed in treating them. The only point in the case which deserved mention was the curious analytical reasoning from effects to causes by which I succeeded in unraveling it." I was annoyed at this criticism of a work which had been specially designed to please him. I confess, too, that I was irritated by the egotism which seemed to demand that every line of my pamphlet should be devoted to his own special doings. More than once during the years that I had lived with him in Baker Street, I had observed that a small vanity underlay my companion's quiet and diegetic manner. I made no remark, however, but sat nursing my wounded leg. I had a Giselle bullet through it some time before, and though it did not prevent me from walking, it ached wearily at every change of the weather. My practice has extended recently to the continent, said Holmes after a while, filling up his old briar-root pipe. I was consulted last week by Francois Levilliard, who, as you probably know, has come rather to the front lately in the French detective service. He has all the Celtic power of quick intuition, but he is deficient in the wide range of exact knowledge which is essential to the higher developments of his art. The case was concerned with a will, and possessed some features of interest. I was able to refer him to two parallel cases, one at Riga in 1857, and the other at St. Louis in 1871, which have suggested to him a true solution. Here is the letter which I had this morning acknowledging my assistance. He tossed over as he spoke a crumpled sheet of foreign notepaper. I glanced my eyes down it, catching a profusion of notes of admiration, with stray magnifique, coup de maître, and tour de force, all testifying to the ardent admiration of the Frenchman. He speaks as a pupil to his master, said I. Oh, he rates my assistance too highly, said Sherlock Holmes lightly. He has considerable gifts himself. He possesses 2 out of the 3 qualities necessary for the ideal detective. He has the power of observation and that of deduction. He is only wanting in knowledge, and that may come in time. He is now translating my small works into French. Your works? Oh, didn't you know? He cried, laughing. Yes, I have been guilty of several monographs. They are all upon technical subjects. Here, for example, is the one upon the distinction between the ashes of the various tobaccos. In it I enumerate 140 forms of cigar, cigarette, and pipe tobacco, with colored plates illustrating the differences in the ash. It is a point which is continually turning up in the criminal trials, and which is sometimes of supreme importance as a clue. If you can say definitely, for example, that some murder had been done by a man who was smoking an Indian lunka, it obviously narrows your field of search. To the trained eye there is as much difference between the black ash of a trichinopoly and the white fluff of bird's eye as there is between a cabbage and a potato. You have an extraordinary genius for minutiae, I remarked. I appreciate their importance. Here's my monograph upon the tracing of footsteps, with some remarks upon the uses of plaster of Paris as a preserver of impresses. Here, too, is a curious little work upon the influence of a trade upon the form of the hand, with lithotypes of the hands of slaters, sailors, cork cutters, compositors, weavers, and diamond polishers. It is a matter of great practical interest to the scientific detective, especially in cases of unclaimed bodies, or in discovering the antecedents of criminals. But I weary you with my hobby. Not at all, I answered earnestly. It is of the greatest interest to me, especially since I have had the opportunity of observing your practical application of it. But you spoke just now of observation and deduction. Surely the one to some extent implies the other. Water break. Why, hardly, he answered, leaning back luxuriously in his armchair and sending up thick blue wreaths from his pipe. For example, observation shows me that you have been to the Wigmore Street post office this morning, but deduction lets me know that when there you dispatched a telegram. Right, said I, right on both points, but I confess that I don't see how you arrived at it. It was a sudden impulse upon my part, and I have mentioned it to no one. It is simplicity itself, he remarked, chuckling at my surprise, so absurdly simple that an explanation is superfluous, and yet it may serve to define the limits of observation and of deduction. Observation tells me that you have a little reddish mold adhering to your instep. Just opposite the Seymour Street office they have taken up the pavement and thrown up some earth which lies in such a way that it is difficult to avoid treading in it in entering. The earth is of this peculiar reddish tint which is found, as far as I know, nowhere else in the neighborhood. So much is observation. The rest is deduction. How, then, did you deduce the telegram? Why, of course, I knew that you had not written a letter, since I sat opposite to you all morning. I see also in your open desk that you have a sheet of stamps and a thick bundle of postcards. What could you go into the post office for, then, but to send a wire? Eliminate all other factors, and the one which remains must be the truth. In this case it is certainly so, I replied after a little thought. The thing, however, is, as you say, of the simplest. Would you think me impertinent if I were to put your theories to a more severe test? On the contrary, he answered, it would prevent me from taking a second dose of cocaine. I should be delighted to look into any problem which you might submit to me. I have heard you say that it is difficult for a man to have any object in daily use without leaving the impress of his individuality upon it in such a way that a trained observer might read it. Now, I have here a watch which has recently come into my possession. Would you have the kindness to let me have an opinion upon the character or habits of the late owner? I handed him over the watch with some slight feeling of amusement in my heart, for the test was, as I thought, an impossible one, and I intended it as a lesson against the somewhat dogmatic tone which he occasionally assumed. He balanced the watch in his hand, gazed hard at the dial, opened the back, and examined the works, first with his naked eyes, then with a powerful convex lens. I could hardly keep from smiling at his crestfallen face when he finally snapped the case to and handed it back. There are hardly any data, he remarked. The watch has been recently cleaned, which robs me of my most suggestive facts. You are right, I answered. It was cleaned before being sent to me. In my heart I accused my companion of putting forward a most lame and impotent excuse to cover his failure. What data could he expect from an uncleaned watch? Though unsatisfactory, my research has not been entirely barren, he observed, staring up at the ceiling with dreamy, lackluster eyes. Subject to your correction, I should judge that the watch belonged to your elder brother, who inherited it from your father. That you gather, no doubt, from the HW upon the back. Quite so. The W suggests your own name. The date of the watch is nearly 50 years back, and the initials are as old as the watch, so it was made for the last generation. Jewelry usually descends to the eldest son, and he is most likely to have the same name as the father. Your father has, if I remember right, been dead many years. It has therefore been in the hands of your eldest brother. Right so far, said I. Anything else? He was a man of untidy habits, very untidy and careless. He was left with good prospects, but he threw away his chances, lived for some time in poverty with occasional short intervals of prosperity, and finally, taking to drink, he died. That's all I can gather. I sprang from my chair and limped impatiently about the room with considerable bitterness in my heart. This is unworthy of you, Holmes, I said. I could not have believed that you would have descended to this. You have made inquiries into the history of my unhappy brother, and you now pretend to deduce this knowledge in some fanciful way. You cannot expect me to believe that you have read all this from this old watch. It is unkind, and to speak plainly, has a touch of charlatanism in it. My dear doctor, he said kindly, pray accept my apologies. Viewing the matter as an abstract problem, I had forgotten how personal and painful a thing it might be to you. I assure you, however, that I never even knew that you had a brother until you handed me the watch. Then how in the name of all that is wonderful did you get these facts? They are absolutely correct in every particular. Ah, that is good luck. I could only say what was the balance of probability. I did not expect to be so accurate. But it was not mere guesswork. No, I never guess. It is a shocking habit, destructive to the logical faculty. What seems strange to you is only so because you do not follow my train of thought or observe the small facts upon which large inferences may depend. For example, I began by stating that your brother was careless. When you observe the lower part of that watch case, you notice that it is not only dinted in 2 places, but it is cut and marked all over from the habit of keeping other hard objects, such as coins or keys, in the same pocket. Surely it is no great feat to assume that a man who treats a 50-guinea watch so cavalierly must be a careless man. Neither is it a very far-fetched inference that a man who inherits one article of such value is pretty well provided for in other respects. I nodded so to show that I followed his reasoning. It is very customary for pawnbrokers in England when they take a watch to scratch the number of the ticket with a pinpoint upon the inside of the case. It is more handy than a label, as there's no risk of the number being lost or transposed. There are no less than 4 such numbers visible to my lens on the inside of this case. Inference that your brother was often at low water. Secondary inference that he had occasional bursts of prosperity, or he could not have redeemed the pledge. Finally, I ask you to look at this inner plate, which contains the keyhole. Look at the thousands of scratches all around the hole, marks where the key is slipped. What sober man's key could have scored those grooves? But you will never see a drunkard's watch without them. He winds it at night, and he leaves these traces of his unsteady hand. Where is the mystery in all this? And time for everyone's least favorite long-lived Tumblr post. It haunts us all, doesn't it? Right? We're all equally haunted by the scene and the phone charger, and every time that... Honestly, I feel like that's one of the most endearing but also frustrating things about fandom culture, that collectively, in the minds of so many people, many of whom have never met each other, lives the same permanent, thought train from, yes, I failed slightly to plug my phone in. Yes, we're all thinking it. We're all thinking it together. Almost as bad as the one that haunts me is, I haven't been able to find this post in a while, but I know I didn't dream it or make it up. I know it was real. There's another Tumblr post that I think about every day of my goddamn life. It will not let me rest. It haunts me forever. There are a lot of Tumblr posts that haunt me forever. That's kind of the game. That's kind of the curse. I know I am not alone in this regard, but the one that drives me up the wall is the gendered shirt removal post. I haven't been able to find it. I'm not going to try right now, because I've been looking for this post again for years, but I haven't been able to fucking find it again. Where it's the yes, guys take their shirt off by grabbing it by the top part. Girls take their shirt off by grabbing it by the bottom part. Now, do I confess this to the internet right now? Yeah, I'm too far in this. For a while, my non-binary ass invented on purpose taking shirts off, a combination of the two, just for the drama. Yeah, I have nothing to say in my defense other than sometimes in your own desperation for meaning and a solid place in an unfortunately binary gendered world, sometimes you take a Tumblr post about and also there's somewhere in the notes of this post, there's a oh yeah, it's easier to take off close-fitted shirts by pulling it from the bottom like that, because if you try to take it off from the top, the knit of the fabric stretches and it kind of does the little weavy finger trap, the woven the finger thing a little bit. happens with knit fabrics, because when you pull on it in one direction, the direction of I used to know these sewing words, but because it's not grain if it's knit. It's not grain if it's a knit. That only counts for wovens. What is the word I'm trying to remember? I will remember it later. The thing where if you have a closely fitted knit fabric shirt, and of course, I guess the same thing kind of applies to a tight-fitted woven shirt, but those typically have some kind of other fastener about it. I am rambling about nothing. It's easier to, somewhere in the notes of this post that I cannot find for the life of me and have been looking for actual years because it sunk its way into my brain exactly as deep as the BBC Sherlock line about the phone charger, which is, of course, an adaptation of the fucking watch key thing. The watch key at least makes more sense because since phone chargers stopped, is it micro USB? Micro USB is the one I'm thinking of. This has gone so far off the rails. I said there was not a brain cell to be found in this stream tonight. The micro USB cables are at least sharp enough to scratch a plastic-based phone frame, not case like case, but the literal physical outside of a phone. A micro USB cable can absolutely like do some damage because it's actually like sharp at the points. But now with the like lightning cables and USB-C cables, they're not actually like sharp enough to do that. So you have to put some, you're not gonna like accidentally obliterate your phone like that, but still deep in the recesses of every person who was on Tumblr in this specific era, because like I think people who just watched the show and moved on with their lives probably didn't cement this into like a core, not core memory, but core reflexive reaction in the same way. The fucking shirt post is the one that haunts me. I do not necessarily still to this day deliberately, oh my god, you know what else ridiculous Sherlock Holmes, specifically BBC Sherlock related brain rot exists haunting me in my life to this day. So, and say it with me now, if you're looking at the like alphabet letters on a keypad, SHER is 7437. For a part of my actual human job, where I have to do this frequently in front of people, there are usually at least another coworker, or without doxing myself or saying the actual passcode out loud, or another person frequently is watching me have to unlock a piece of technology for my job. The passcode is 1 digit off of SHER. And so you know, multiple times a day, I type in the SHER instead of the correct passcode. Sometimes like 2 or 3 times in a row, because, hey, this is no longer my phone passcode. But it was everyone's phone passcode for a minute there. Look. That's nothing we didn't all know. What did I click on just now? Okay. Yeah. Multiple times a day. Frequently with witnesses. I default to typing 7437 or SHER into a device. I'm gonna finish this chapter now. Oh, right, the fucking shirt thing. Yeah. Something in the notes of this Tumblr post. There is a like, oh, it's easier to take tightly fitted shirts off by pulling it that way. Blah blah blah. It's easier to take off a loosely fitted shirt by pulling it by the neck like that. For some reason, someone years ago, probably an actual goddamn decade ago, did some, like, fabric science about this that I half remember, even though it has ruined my life. I'm being dramatic. It's, like, literally fine. I don't remove shirts by pulling them by the collar but crossed every time. Sometimes I do it, and then I remember, yes, the marks of Tumblr will brand me for always. I will never live any of this down. It is simply too far. The brain worms are forever and always. I'm so normal and fine. I'm gonna finish this chapter. We are reading one chapter tonight, and that is as good as this is gonna get. Oh my god, where was I? Yes, the watch thing. It is as clear as daylight, I answered. I regret the injustice which I did you. I should have had more faith in your marvelous faculty. May I ask whether you have any professional inquiry on foot at present? None, hence the cocaine. I cannot live without brain work. What else is there to live for? Stand at the window here. Was ever such a dreary, dismal, unprofitable world? See how the yellow fog swirls down the street and drifts across the dun-colored houses. What could be more hopelessly prosaic and material? What is the use of having powers, doctor, when one has no field upon which to exert them? Crime is commonplace, existence is commonplace, and no qualities, save those which are commonplace, have any function upon earth. I had opened my mouth to reply to this tirade when with a crisp knock our landlady entered, bearing a card upon the brass salver. A young lady for you, sir, she said, addressing my companion. Miss Mary Morstan. He read. I have no recollection of the name. Ask the young lady to step up, Miss Hudson. Don't go, doctor. I should prefer that you remain. Oh, that is the end of the chapter. I'm gonna have some water and maybe call it here a little early for tonight. Simply because we spent 40 minutes trying to get through that one chapter, because I presented a brief digression. I say. I'm going to make sure I get the VOD from last week uploaded to my YouTube before I forget. I'm not sure what happened to the VOD of my Barricade Day stream. I thought it was saved as a YouTube draft, which means I downloaded it somewhere to my computer, but I think YouTube ate the draft, and I can't find it on my computer because why would it be organized? This concludes Public Domain Book Club Hour. Next time you plug in your phone, don't think about it. Next time you have to remove a shirt, don't think about it. Good night and good luck.